Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to make this Lacy shawl from beginning to end. Now the loom I'm using for this is the 60 peg 3/8 inch gauge loom from cindywoodcrafts.com or cindywoodlooms.com. The yarn I am using is from MJ Yarns. I got it in my January Classic box from Yarn Box, which there's a direct link to the review of that so you can see exactly what the yarn looked like, how it came, but a little information about it. It's a Peruvian Dream worsted, so it's a 4-ply. It's 50% alpaca, 30% merino, 20% silk, and it was 220 yards. I had 2 hanks, and this is what left. So I could have actually made my shawl longer if I'd wanted to. With it, I do suggest this is a project that you are going to need to block. You'll definitely need to block to open up the lace and show it better. So I do suggest using an alpaca or a wool or just an actual fiber, not an acrylic. I have been told is the acrylics don't want to block as nicely as your actual animal fibers. Alright, you will need your loom tool for this, your loom. Now this video is made to go with the PDF, which a direct link to the PDF is in the description below, or you can go to my Ravelry page or Cindy Wood's website. But this is essentially, you'll get a chart similar to this. There's some changes on this one because this was the original one I wrote up. But how you read this is it goes from 1 to 50 on the bottom and 1 to 16 on the top. The 1 to 50 are pegs on the loom. The 1 to 16 are rows. And I believe, I will recount, but I think I repeated this chart like 20 times. Or 15 or 20 times to get the length I got on this. But anyway, I had a pile of these rubber bands and now I only have 3. I'm not sure what happened. I think the cat took them. But what I like to do is mark out spots on your loom as reference points while you're doing this project. It really helps with time and it helps with accuracy. The first thing you want to mark out is, this is 50 pegs wide. The loom is 60 pegs. So we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put it on that 6 peg there. Go back the opposite way if I can get these separated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put it on the 6 peg. So you'll have 10 open pegs here, which I'll show you. We do a design, we do a double moss stitch on these all the way around just to give a border to the project. But this right here would be peg 1. So this first one marked here would be peg 1 marked on the chart. And the last one would be peg 50 right here. I only have one more rubber band, but I'll just tell you. I also mark out the end of this side, the beginning of this side, the middle, the end, the beginning, and then that end's already marked out. So I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rubber bands on there altogether. And even in this part right here, I don't split up too much because it's pretty. Most of these, there's 3 pegs in between, 3 pegs. There's only like a few rows through it that there's not. So it's kind of easy to count that out. But for the rest of this, you definitely want to have it marked out. And the rubber bands I like, they stay pretty good. They're very cheap, which is nice as well. Okay, let's get started on this project. The cast on we're going to do, we will cast on the entire loom. And I'm going to cast on with the chain cast on. So to do this, which I do have other videos if you'll need a better tutorial, but we are going to create a slip knot. And this slip knot, this is the working yarn. This is the tail. I'm going to put the yarn behind the peg, pull the working yarn through, and tighten. Put that tail behind, and now it's hooked to the loom, and I've got this loop, and I got the string coming from the spool. So this loop, which has 2 strings on it, both strings go behind the next peg, and we pull the working yarn through. Let me hold it up some. Both strands go behind, and you pull your working yarn through. Both strands, working yarn. I'm making it look awkward, not intentionally. It's just I'm trying to hold it up to where you can see this side while I'm doing it. But you do this all the way around, and this is actually a variation of the crochet cast on. It's just done without the crochet hook. It takes a lot of the time out of it, and I find it a lot easier. The same thing with the crochet cast off. I find it easier to do crochet cast off without a crochet needle or crochet hook. But you just do this. Now when you get to this other side over here, that very last peg, what you're going to do is you're just going to take this loop, put on that peg, and tighten it up. I'm just going to show like a little swatch because you're still working in a flat panel. It's just faster for me to show it to you this way in just one video. So you'll have this all the way around to this peg, not connected. And what we're doing is, the stitch we're using is called a double moss stitch, which once it's all blocked out, you don't really see much of the texture to it, but a double moss stitch is one that will want to, sorry, I keep hitting my hammer, it's one that'll want to lay flat, but you're not really going to see much of the texture when the project's done and blocked, especially with the collars. Now if you use like maybe a single collar to do this, you might see it a little better, but I'm not seeing it like really hardly at all. How we do the double moss stitch is you are going to knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, all the way down, which I don't have an even number on here, so I'll just make one more loop. Actually, I'll just take one loop away. Just take one loop away just for the swatch to show you. Okay, now typically when you're working in a flat panel, to help it lay flatter, the yarn is coming from this middle peg, between these 2 pegs, so I'd go ahead and wrap this one and go all the way to the end and wrap this last one. But for this one, I liked it better wrapping both pegs. So we knit 2, and then we purl 2. And you just repeat this all the way to the end. You knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, all the way to the end. And to make it a double moss stitch, you'll do 2 rows of knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and then the next 2 rows you'll do purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2. You're going to do 7 rows of that, and then we'll get to the body. Most of it done, because all you do is just repeat these 16 rows. And as you can see, the way we read these charts, this one, there's a corrected version in the PDF, but this will give you a basic idea. This is row 1 through 50. This loom has 60 pegs on it. So we've got 5 pegs on both sides that are outside of this design right here, which of course, like I showed earlier, we've got those marked out so we'll know our boundaries. Now what I'm doing, the last 4 pegs, I'm still continuing the double moss stitch pattern like I did on the brim. So it will have, the entire thing will have a double moss border. the design, there doesn't really show up much in it, but it just keeps everything symmetrical. Okay, so to get started, what we do is we follow this chart. You may want a row counter. I usually have a book or a ruler or something blocking off my rows, so I'm just following one row. Let me find our beginning here. That yellow peg, that yellow rubber band represents peg 1 right here. This right here are the pegs. That's the rows. We're going to work bottom to top and left to right. So our first peg, what we're doing are yarn over and knit 2 together. So this one, of course, I've changed it. The slant is going this way, so it means we're going to take the yarn off that peg and move it to the peg to this side. So that is the very first peg. That'd be this first peg marked here. We're taking the yarn off. Now I find if I kind of untwist it a bit, see, you want like the loop like that, it makes the design a little more noticeable. Alright, we did that one. Now if we look, there are 3 empty boxes, and then we have one that goes that way. So we got 1, 2, 3 empty pegs, and this one we're going to put on this peg because that's the angle the slant is going. And again, I kind of untwist them a bit, and you need to make sure you are wrapping very, very loosely when you do this. So 1, 2, 3, we're skipping 3 again. Now this one, the slant's going back that way. So we're going to take that peg and put the loop on the peg before. And we got one more for this little section. 1, 2, 3, and this one, the slant is going back again. So what we just did was the first 13 pegs of row 1. So we have one that went that way, and then we had one that went that way, then 2 that went that way. So you just think of it like from bottom to top, it's going that way. So that is the way the yarn went. Same thing with this one. It went from this peg over to that peg. That went from this peg over to that peg. I hope that makes sense. So in this one, these are supposed to be empty. And we go over to this end and we do the same thing. And of course, I've got everything marked off. We do that all the way around, and that's how you follow the pattern. You just gotta make sure you have your rows right. Now I do want to show you what happens if you put them on the wrong peg. So where this one, if I would have put it on, taken it from peg 1 and put it on peg 2 instead of peg 1 and put it on the one before peg 1. At the beginning, I had done some of that, and I'm hoping that I can stretch this out enough to really show you some of the details so you can see what happens. Well, for this section, it's a little harder to tell, but we will look in this middle section. On these edges here is what I'm talking about. Okay, so, oh, it's hard to see. Okay, there we go. See how those triangles are opened up? You can see how they're open. If I put the peg on the wrong one, look at this one. You can see how it has like a chain right there. It's not opened all the way up where this one is. That's because I put the loop on the wrong peg, and it closed that off. Where on this section I did the same thing, but I put the loop on the next peg, and it opened that all up. So it is very important that you are putting these on the peg it is telling you to put it on. And really for this, all you do is you follow this chart, row 1 to row 16, And you just make sure if it's leaning that way, you put it that way. If it's leaning that way, you put it that way. You need to make sure you wrap very loose so that you your tension isn't too tight. So I'm going to finish this row up and then I'll show you what you do after that. That row, all the pegs moved to where they need to be. All the loops moved to where they need to be. The second part of this is we will E-wrap this entire row, but the first 4 and the last 4 pegs we're keeping our moss stitch. So just wherever you're at with it, like this one, I'm at a purl. Oops. Purl 2. And then I will E-wrap everything, and these 2 right here will be purled. I have them opposite on the ends. Alright. Bring my yarn over. So then we just E-wrap, which I highly suggest using a tensioner for this, because every other row is E-wrapped. Because anytime you move your yarns, do your yarn overs, or however you want to say it, you will do a row of E-wrap next. In that E-wrap, you do every single peg, even the ones that are empty from the yarn being moved the step before. So you do this all the way around. Then you take your bottoms over the top, and then I want to show you a couple more tricks before you go ahead and finish this. Okay, so I've taken the bottom loops over the tops. Now there are a couple tricks that I do that really help save me some frustration and time. You can see I didn't pull this loop over yet because these 2 are E-wrapped, these 2 were purled, and then there's always going to be one E-wrap on both sides before you get into your design. That kind of separates everything from the design. That's why I did that. The reason I left that there is so when I got all my pegs over the top, I can go back, I can take that one off. I know this was an E-wrap, so I'm going to go ahead and E-wrap those 2 and purl these 2. The reason I do that is because I want to leave it like this. That way when I'm done with moving my yarn around for my second row, I will know that these 2 were purled, these 2 were E-wrapped, these 2 were purled. That way I know that these 2 will be E-wrapped and these 2 will be purled. And typically what I'll do is I'll go ahead and push those 2 down and push those 2 up, just to kind of like it's a visual reminder for myself. And I do use a row counter. Row counter is very helpful, but sometimes say a kid gets a hold of your row counter, or you forget to mess it, you forget to click it and you're not sure what row you're on. There is a way to kind of check. What you want to do is I usually start at my very first marked peg, and then I feel and I find which one is empty, because one of these, which I know it's this one right here, but as you can see, if I can get this, move my light. I don't know if this will help, but I'll try. Okay, I have to just move it up. Okay, so see, this one just has an E-wrap on it. It's not connected. There's a hole underneath of it. So I know that this was my empty peg the row before. See how these ones are all hooked in? This was another empty peg. Right here was another empty peg. This was an empty peg the row before that. You can see there's 2 pieces of yarn going to it. See, that was an empty peg. And then the rest will be over here. Right here. That was an empty peg. All I have is just that one twist on it that's not connected to anything else. That is very helpful, because sometimes if you're not counting right and you realize you will never, through this entire project, there's not a single spot where you will be taking yarn off of a peg that was just an E-wrap the peg before and moving it. And I'll show you what it looks like if you pick it up and it does this and it wants to automatically untwist and just be a loop, you're moving the wrong peg. And the way you put it back on, so I just put it behind, just flip the loop over. And then I find out where I counted wrong and then correct it. But with the rubber bands marking out all the sections, it really, really, really helps. Okay, so at this point, all you do is you just keep using this pattern, 1 to 16, and remember your double moss for the first 4 and the last 4. E-wrap after each row of moving your yarn. Once it gets to the length you want, what you want to do is finish off again with 5 rows of your double moss stitch, and then I will show you how to do your cast off. So go ahead and work this out, and then I'll show you how to do the cast off, and I will also do a video to show you how to block this if you need to. Of course, using different yarn, different fibers, it will change the outcome of this project. Okay, so go ahead and finish it up, and let's see where we're at. Once your wrap is as long as you want it to be, you just wrap the working yarn around the loom 3 times and then cut. That way you have enough yarn to work the cast off, which we are using a super stretchy cast off is what it's called. So it's coming from this peg, which if for some reason yours is coming from the other side, that's fine, don't worry about it. You skip 1 peg, you bring your yarn up through, you go back 1 and take your yarn down. I do have other videos if you need a better tutorial of how to do this. See, now the yarn is kind of in between these 2 pegs, so you're going to skip this peg and bring the yarn up this one, and then you'll go back and bring it down this one. This is how you do it all the way around. You're going to skip 1, take it up, skip, go back 1, and pull it down. And what you want to do is you're going to do this all the way, make sure I'm getting that in the shot for you. See, we skipped 1, point it up, go back 1, take it down, and you want to do this all the way around the loom. And then once you're done, you went through every single loop, then you can just take the whole thing off, and then I'm going to show you how to block it. Alright, once your wrap is off the loom and you wove your ends in, now we want to block it. And block it, what that means is the edges and stuff are trying to curl on us, so we want these to lay flat. And first thing you want to do, which I've already done, is you want to get this wet, like soak it, completely soak it in water, and then kind of, you don't want to wring it out. You don't want to be like wringing it, anything like that. If you're using alpaca and wool and stuff like that, it might felt on you. So don't do that. What you want to do is I took a towel below it and a towel above it, and I stepped on it to get the excess water out. And for the blocking, I've got like a piece of pin board down here, but I put some white underneath so you could see what I'm doing. I'm going to start in the corner over here, and I'll stretch it, because I want to stretch this out because I want that design in it to really, really show. And just every once in a while I'll put a pin in it, just trying to keep all of this straight. And there are other ways you can block, so if you've got a way that you like to block that works better than this, then please leave a comment in the description below. If there's videos for it, please share it with everybody, because I am not an expert at this stuff. So I just do what I am told, what people teach me, what I learn by myself, and I'm always looking to learn new and better ways to do things. So, and see, like this right here is curling, wanting to curl under some, but I'm just going to go along here every couple inches, kind of stretch that out so that it's flat, And I'll do the same on the other side too. And I'm going to do this all the way around it. And I'll leave it overnight to dry. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all pinned. Okay, so I've got it all blocked out. Let me move the camera around. See, the pins are all around it. Now, one thing I did notice is that I had to go back a couple times and kind of adjust where the pins were. And because I'd noticed that the edges weren't quite straight. So that's perfectly fine. You can do that as many times as you need until you get it the shape that you want it. And it was wet when I put it down here, and it's set overnight, and it's all dry now. So at this point, we're going to go and take, let's start on the corner, take all of our pins out and see what we got, which I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you. Alright, so it is completely done at this point. We can move it around, and you'll see how it wants to lay. You're able to see the design in it very easily now. When I had it on the loom, it was pretty hard to really see the design in it. But now that it's blocked and it's all stretched out, it's very, very noticeable. Try to move it around so you can see it from different angles. Yay! Okay, I'm very, very happy with how this turned out. Alright, for everybody else, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comment section below, or you can just directly email me. My email address is in the description below as well. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and again, thank you for watching.